Sarah is a first-year student pursuing a double major in English and Communications with a minor in philosophy. This summer she dreams of starting a photography business, and in the years after college she wishes to open a coffee shop that employs the victims of sex trafficking. She enjoys poetry, caffeinated beverages, Shakespeare, and making new friends. Sarah's speech is entitled Boxes. Sarah, welcome.
In order to understand the world around us, we build boxes. We label the outsides of these intricate constructions with depictions and personal definitions of the items we place inside. Light bulb, noun, an object emanating light powered by electricity. We understand what hides within our nightlight. Fish, noun, a limbless, cold-blooded vertebrate animal with gills and fins and living wholly in water. We better grasp the aquatic creatures that teem within the sea beside us. Woman, noun, a mediocre breed of Homo sapien with a strong sense of emotion and maternal instincts, with a weaker physical composition and intellect. Now I know who I'm supposed to be. Prisoner, noun, a corrupt individual, parasite of society, evildoer. Homosexual, noun, sinner, unnatural, weak, perverted. When we tell a person long enough who they are, they start to listen. We then validate our oppressive descriptions because the very individuals we define have become as simple as we told them that they always were. Our first glance gives us our first chance to measure an individual's worth. We scan their appearances for ethnicity, signifiers of wealth, nonverbal symbols, religious affiliation, sexual orientation, physicality, and general appearance in order to create a profile of their character before we even utter hello. We delicately shove this individual into our filing cabinet of specificity, using a complex algorithm to weigh their appearances against our personal past experiences. We place them in a box because it is easier to know them as a category than by name. But in our pursuit to tame a jungle of individuality, we've robbed ourselves of the most beautiful aspect of our humanity. Until we retrain ourselves to focus on the details of personality rather than assessing and deriving a category, we will continue to see a once vibrant world in the most muted of grays. I'm sure the most discerning of you here noticed and critiqued the use of my encompassing we to define you as a listener within a larger context of the others around you in a speech that aims to hypocritically debunk the use of stereotypes. I'm looking at you and using an encompassing term to handle you all as a collective. From my perspective behind this podium, you are a piece of an audience. You are replicable. You are indistinguishable. But imagine for a moment that I refuse to obey the laws of traditional speech giving. Instead of standing up here, preaching from a makeshift pulpit in order to distinguish myself from this collective, I asked you who you are. I asked you about your dreams, your friends, your family, your character, the pet turtle you had in 3rd grade that you wanted to name Shelley, but you thought that was too pretentious, so you named her Tara instead, but inside your heart, you always knew she was meant to be Shelley. I want to know you. Now imagine if everyone in this world paid that much attention to the individuals around them. We would understand one another, feel for one another, and in avidly searching for the minute details that make us different, we would find that at our core, we are all built from the same humanity. We are all made in the same image. Although we profess our Sunday church attendance to proclaim that our God made the heavens and earth, we systematically attempt to tear down that creation by belittling the people around us. Sure, I am a child of God, deserving divine mercy and love, but you look different than me, and as a result, you lose that distinction. We think that a hijab or socioeconomic status has the power to take away an individual's inherent worth as a daughter of God. But Jesus advocated for a different world than the one we live in today. Not only do we rob ourselves of an enriched experience on earth, but when an individual refuses to understand their neighbor, they directly violate the teachings of Jesus Christ. The commands to refrain from judgment can be we're all at least familiar with the parable of the Good Samaritan. I don't think anyone was ever hurt from hearing a good story one more time. Luke 10:25-37 says, on one occasion, an expert in the law stood up to test Jesus. Teacher, he asked, what must I do to inherit eternal life? What is written in the law? He said. How do you repeat it? He answered, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength and with all your mind, and love your neighbors as yourself." "You have answered correctly," Jesus replied. "Do this and you will live." But he wanted to justify himself, so he asked Jesus, "And who is my neighbor?" In reply, Jesus said, "A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho when he was attacked by robbers. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead. A priest happened to be going down the same road, and when he saw the man, he passed by on the other side. So too a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, as he traveled, came where the man was, and when he saw him, he took pity on him. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, poured on oil and wine. Then he put the man on his own donkey, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. The next day he took the 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper. 'Look after him,' he said, 'and when I return, I will reimburse you for any extra expenses you may have.' Which of these 3 do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of the robbers?" And the expert of the law replied, "The one who had mercy on him." Jesus told him, "Go and do likewise." I'm sure we've all had at least one instance throughout the course of our lives when we've identified with this self-proclaimed expert of the law. We've all tried in vain to limit the scope of our neighbors in order to maintain our personal understandings of our moral law, to keep the world confined to the distorted lens that we've created. Sure, I know I'm supposed to love everyone, but I don't think Jesus really meant him. He's a bully, he doesn't deserve my love. We foolishly forget by that logic none of us deserve love. If how much love we received from God was based on a merit system or culture or our actions, we would all fall woefully short, and God would wind up with quite a bit of vacant real estate up in heaven. We constantly search for validation in verses to support the perpetuation of our pet prejudices. We find the verses that strengthen our resolve in the judgment of our neighbors and ignore the overwhelming evidence that the answer is unconditional love for all of God's creation. Luke 6:37 says, "Judge not, and you will not be judged. Condemn not, and you will not be condemned. Forgive, and you will be forgiven." God removes our right to condemn those around us in Romans 2:1-3. "Therefore you have no excuse, O man, every one of you who judges. For in passing judgment on another you condemn yourself, because you, the judge, practice the very same things. We know that the judgment of God rightly falls on those who practice such things. Do you suppose, O man, you who judge those who practice such things and yet do them yourself, that you will escape the judgment of God? The only fruit of our judgment could ever bear is a temple of hypocrisy." When something comes along to challenge our definitions, to break the cookie-cutter mold we thought we could use to break apart the world into pieces small enough to consume, our entire process of living is disrupted. In today's impossibly fast-paced culture, it seems more and more impossible to set aside time to develop an understanding of one another. However, if we choose to streamline our understanding of the individuals around us, we sacrifice the very meaning of our existence. To see the majesty of God waiting to be discovered in the souls of the beautiful, unique, and inherently wonderful individuals all around us.